Keeping your chickens warm in the winter is far easier than keeping them cool in the summer. And chickens suffer from heat stress once the temperature gets above 75 or 80 degrees Fahrenheit, especially in humid areas. So here are my 10 go-to ways to keep my birds comfortable during a heat wave. Hey y'all, I'm Renee and welcome to Tater Town. As temperatures rise, chickens can experience heat stress, which can lead to serious health issues. This is especially concerning during heat waves when temperatures can skyrocket. Chickens can't regulate their body temperature like humans do. They don't sweat, but they do pant like dogs do, and they will hold their wings out to the side so that they can get better airflow. And they also rely on their combs and wattles and feet to help regulate their body temperature. If they can't keep themselves cool, they can die. So it's super important to take steps to keep them cool. Chickens showing signs of heat stress might appear lethargic. They may have labored breathing and pale wattles and combs. They may even stop laying eggs. So if you notice any of these symptoms, you need to act fast to cool them down. Preventing heat stress is always better than treating it. By taking proactive measures and paying attention to upcoming weather events, you can be prepared and keep your chickens safe from the discomfort and danger of heat stress. Oh, and hopefully it'll reduce your stress as well. So here are 10 things you can do to keep your chickens cool when temperatures rise. So first and foremost, make sure your chickens have a shady area to go. Whether they have access to trees, a roof, a tarp, or sunshade, give them a place to get out of the sun. You know how miserable it is when you're stuck standing in the sun. I even made the chickens a retractable sunshade for the run so they can have more shaded areas on really hot days. Okay, it's really for me so I can spend more time in the run when it's super bright. And I will have a video in the next few weeks on how to make your own retractable sunshade if it's something you want to do. Next, you want to provide fresh, cool water at all times. You may find yourself having to dump and refill your containers a few times a day, but you can definitely take advantage of keeping your waterers in that shaded area we just talked about. Now, I use a 15-gallon water barrel for their water, and the water recirculates, which keeps it cooler, but it also makes it really easy for me to just dump some ice into it throughout the day. And that brings me to the next thing you can do to help your chicks beat the heat. You can freeze water in small bottles or larger water or milk jugs. Just be sure not to fill it all the way to the top with the water. Keep some space for the water to expand, or else the container's probably gonna burst and you're gonna have a mess in your freezer. Now I freeze a variety of sizes so I can add them where I need them. I can put them in the water barrel instead of ice, and they also make a great cooling spot for your chickens to hang out on. Just put a towel over some of the frozen containers and they can walk on them to cool their feet or lay on or next to them to cool down. You can also put some in a swimming pool, which just so happens to be, what's up, buddy? Which just so happens to be the fourth way I like to keep my chickens cool. Of course, when I say swimming pool, I mean a kiddie pool. And it doesn't have to be anything that elaborate either. It can be some feed bowls or pans with about 2 inches of cool water in them, so your chickens can cool their feet, which will help lower their body temperature. Now, here's the rub. It doesn't matter that this is a great way for your chickens to cool down. It's a hard sell. The first year I had the pool, I had like 1 or 2 of my 20 chickens that would actually get in it. The rest of the time, they just hung out around it and drank water from it. So at least they were staying hydrated. But over time, more and more of my chickens actually get in and cool off, so it's worth it for me to have it. Now, I'm only gonna fill this about 2 inches. I'll fill this part a little more, just because that's where they like to drink. And like I said earlier, if you've got those frozen containers, you can just slip one in, set it there, and it'll keep the water cooler for longer. If you've got fans, use them. Just like us, fans help keep us cool by making the air less stagnant feeling, and it allows evaporation to take place, and evaporation is a cooling process. Of course, I can't stress enough to make sure you're using fans that have a safety grill that can keep your chickens from getting anywhere near the blades. If they can get any body part in there, don't use it. Or keep it somewhere where there's no chance they can get near it, like outside the run or outside the hen house. A lot of people also use misters outside. I do not. They are great things to have, especially if you live in a dry or less humid environment. But if you live in a hot, high humidity area, you probably won't benefit as much from a mister unless the water that is coming out is cold and you're coupling it with fans to increase evaporation. I do think they are a great addition to keep your chickens cool in the appropriate environment. Number 6 is ventilation. It is even more important to have adequate ventilation in the hen house, especially when all your birds are sleeping at night. If the temperature inside gets above 85 degrees Fahrenheit, especially if it's humid, your chickens are at a much higher risk of heat stress or heat stroke. If you're able and predators are not an issue, keep everything as open as you can overnight so that there's as much airflow as possible. Fans are also a great addition here to keep that air circulating. One of the things I keep in the hen house is a Wi-Fi hygrometer. It is obviously not necessary, but I like the fact that I can set temperature and humidity alerts. So if it does get to 75 degrees in the hen house and over a certain percentage of humidity, I know I need to open things up and start the fans. Number 7 and 8 have to do with feeding your chickens. You may want to adjust your feeding times when the weather is very hot. Now, my chickens have access to dry food at all times in these buckets, but I bring them fermented feed each day. So if it's gonna be a very hot day, I will either feed them very early in the morning, but typically I wait until early evening. In other words, I don't feed them in the heat of the day. And why is that? Right, Lil? You're pecking me. There's 2 reasons for this. First, digesting food generates heat. And if I feed them at the hottest part of the day, I could possibly increase the risk of heat stress. Second, when it's really hot, nobody wants to eat as much as they normally would. So they may not get the amount of nutrition they would normally get. You will also want to limit scratch grains, cracked corn, and high protein, again, due to the heat generated by digestion. What I do instead is offer them frozen treats during the time I would normally give them their fermented feed. And that's my number 8. Frozen treats are great things to give your chickens to keep them cool. Now, you can give them straight up ice cubes or make some ice cubes with added goodies like blueberries, strawberries, and raspberries. You can also give them frozen watermelon, cucumbers, zucchini, or tomatoes from your garden. And my go-to, after we cut up a watermelon or cantaloupe, we leave a little bit, a very little amount of the fruit on the rind and freeze them. Obviously, you want to make sure they're still getting most of their nutrition from their regular food, but this will keep them cool and give them something to eat if they've had all of their food early or if they aren't eating until later in the day. And they will be super happy to get these treats, right? What's up, buddy? Except for Bryson, who's gonna flog me right about now. Put some over here for you guys. Hi, girls. If you add apple cider vinegar or other organic acids, don't do it during a heat wave. I am a believer in the benefits of acidifying your chicken's water. I even have a video on it. But there are times when it is not a good idea, and hot weather is one of them. Like I said earlier, when chickens are hot, they pant to cool down. That panting actually causes a change in their blood pH, and apple cider vinegar can increase the risk of acidosis and in turn, heat stroke. It also acts as a mild diuretic, so it can worsen the electrolyte loss they are already experiencing due to the panting. Bottom line, skip the ACV and instead make sure that you're giving them electrolytes. It's really important to keep electrolytes on hand for your chickens, and not just for heat stress. They can be very helpful during or after any kind of stress, or when they're sick. Luckily, there's a lot of products, and you can even make your own. I've used Save a Chick, Hydro Hen, but I'm currently using Flock Leader Recover 911. Make sure that when you use them, first and foremost, follow the product's directions. Always offer plain water in addition to the electrolyte water, and what I use is a separate container, so my chickens still have access to their water bar and the fresh cold water that's coming from that, and I will make sure that there's no acid in that mixture. And I will use a bucket like this that has just, one that I made that I put 4 water nipples on, and I will use that to add my electrolytes so they have access to both. You also want to make sure that you make a fresh mixture each day. Most of them tell you to only use it for 24 hours and then you have to make a fresh batch. And make sure to give your birds a break from the electrolytes, usually after 3 days. This is because overusing them can lead to an electrolyte imbalance or nutrient deficiencies. Well, these are my top 10 tips for helping my chickens beat the heat. But do you have any that I didn't mention that you find helpful? Let me know in the comments so that others can learn from you too. And let me know if you've got any questions. In the meantime, thanks for hanging out with me on Tater Town. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you can see more videos that will help you do those things you never thought you could.